Welcome back, y'all, and happy Thursday. This is the Blue Chip Breakdown. I'm your host, Bull. Today, we're going to be talking about our secondary. There's been a whole lot of question marks about our secondary heading into 2025. There were really questions heading into 2024. I think that they played well, and we talked yesterday about our front seven. Everything all works together. It's going to be a whole lot of information in this video because y'all know P and I did play in the secondary for pretty much our entire lives. So I have a whole lot of thoughts right here. And, I'm going to share what I think the secondary will look like heading into the spring, what it could potentially look like heading into the actual season. Please do make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. So, first and foremost, let's pull this up, okay? Just like we looked at yesterday, this is going to be, my projected, I guess, depth chart heading into 2025. And it does have the blue chip ratios next to each group. So if you're looking at the cornerbacks, the blue chip ratio right there is 57%. The blue chip ratio is just the 4 and 5 star caliber players compared to everybody else. You want to really definitely be up over 50% for sure. But I think that we've got some players inside of all these groups that are actually underrated. So starting off with our cornerbacks, number one, Jamal McCoy. We all know that he is a stud. He was a 4-star coming out of high school. I believe he might have been a 4-star wide receiver. Either way, he's a 5-star caliber player. So already starting off, understanding that some of these players are most definitely underrated for whatever reason. I don't think that these sites do the best job of breaking down what the talent level is for these players. And I mean, it could be just because whenever you're talking about secondary, these are the best athletes. So if there's a difference, it's a very, very small difference with most of these players. They can all get things done. It's really all going to be based off of what the scheme is like, what the coaching is like, because we looked at those Buckeyes. They've got 2 5-star, maybe 3 or 4 5-star caliber safeties, cornerbacks in their top 4. And all those guys are trash. I mean, like, none of those guys look good in coverage because they can't coach them right. But we've gotten more with I guess, less talent, with our roster. So anyway, our best cornerback probably won't be playing for, I would say, close to like the first month because he's got, he's dealing with a knee injury and he'll probably be able to move around and stuff. He might be fully cleared. I would say maybe before the season even starts, but do we want to throw him back out there, immediately? I don't know if that's the case. So we got to find some more depth. So number 2, Ricky Gibson, another 4-star guy. Loved him coming out of high school. He does a great job in man-to-man coverage, zone coverage. He's a physical player. Really, all of our secondary players, they're very well-rounded, and they're pretty much like they can probably play at any other spot. But Ricky Gibson is really good. Okay, we will also look at how many, what the percentages were just as far as the passes that were called on them and things like that. We'll take a look at the different coverages and all of that type of stuff. So Ricky Gibson is going to be our best corner, more than likely to start this season off. He's not too far, I don't think, behind Jamal McCoy. So next we have Jalen McMurray, who was a 3-star. He was a transfer from Temple, and he did some really nice things. Again, we will look at how they looked, in coverage, man versus zone, and all of that. He's one that would probably shock some of y'all. So a really good player. He's probably going to be our starter, but we got to find that 3rd and 4th cornerback to start this season off. So we're talking about, at number 4, Caleb Beasley, who was a 4-star coming out of high school. He's got some good tools. For me, he's a lot more of a zone cornerback. It might be best for him. It might be best for this entire team if he makes a move maybe to safety. And the reason that I'm saying that is just because he doesn't look the best in and out of his breaks and things like that, not to be hard on him or nothing like that. He will get better, very, very limited reps for him, just based off what I saw on film. Looked really good coming out of high school, but I think that he does have a ways to go with some of these other players. So might be best suited to maybe make a move. Would not be surprised at all, y'all, if in spring practice we hear about him getting cross-trained at some other spots, because he would be a lot better playing at safety where he gets to play more off coverage and he can make breaks on the ball. He's already big enough to play safety, about 6'1", 6'2", 200 pounds. That was last year. He might get a little bit bigger than that. So, safety might be the move for Caleb Beasley. Next, we have Tyler Redmond, who is a true freshman. Actually, the next 3 are all going to be true freshmen coming up this season. So Tyler Redmond, Dylan Lewis, they were both teammates here in Georgia at Milton. Second highest classification this season. I want to say last year they were in the highest class, but both really, really good cornerbacks. And then we have Trey Poteet. So whenever we're talking about Ty, I can tell you about him personally. Number one, my nephew Bray, who y'all see on this channel, he's actually been working out with him, or he did, once or twice here recently. Ty's on campus at this point, but I trust what my nephew Bray says. He understands football from the time it's like a little kid, like 5 or 6. He's sitting with the grown folks. He's sitting with all the men at the table talking football, just like everybody else. So he understands it. But he said, man, Ty looks really good. He said he looks great in and out of all his breaks and things like that. He said he's a long, rangy guy that can move. So that's something that you can definitely notice on his film. For me, he probably has the best chance to come in and compete for that third or fourth spot to start the season off because he is so long. He reminds me, he reminds me a lot of the Seahawks cornerback. Dang, I can't think of his name now, but the taller guy. Like they're very similar with their style of play because they are so long. They can disrupt passing lanes in a different way. They don't have to be as close to the wide receiver to make stops. But Ty, man, he's done a beautiful job versus all different levels of competition, here in Georgia, going down to Florida. I mean, everywhere that they've played, every game that I've seen him play in, and I want to say I've seen maybe every single game that he's played, and he's done a phenomenal job in coverage, and he does a good job of coming up and making tackles. Might not be the biggest thumper, but he knows how to get you down. So very, very savvy, and I think that his savviness, I think that his length and all of that is going to be great. To help us out in spring. He's probably the guy as a true freshman that we should be looking out for the most. Now, what I have also heard from Ty is that, the staff was talking to him about playing at star. Now, that was before we had the injury to our best cornerback. So I think that he's probably going to get a good, a very heavy dose of getting an opportunity to play a cornerback. So next we have Dylan Lewis, who is he's got good size. He's probably about 6 foot, maybe 6'1", Ty's 6'2", 6'3". So, Dylan Lewis does have really good size, looks good in coverage. He can also be very physical, things like that. And then with Trey Poteet, he's another one that I do believe the staff wanted to play star. But because we do have the injury, because we're a little bit shorthanded, I think he's also going to get the chance to see what he can do playing at a true corner. But one of those guys, more than likely, is going to end up having to play at star because we need some depth there because we all know that Boo Carter wants to play on offense. So let's talk about the star position. Boo Carter, we all know how, outstanding he is. I really feel like it's because the room at this point is a little bit more shorthanded. I'm not quite sure how much he's going to get the opportunity to play on offense. He is going to get to play for sure. There's no question about that. But how much will it be? That's kind of yet to be seen because Jordan Thomas, who would have been the starter heading into the season, he's coming off of a serious knee deal. And it sounds like from the insiders that they don't even know how ready he's going to be to start this season off. So he might not be a guy that we can lean on and say, hey, he's going to be ready to rock and roll from day one. I don't even know how much he's going to do in spring. It sounds like his knee deal was very, very serious. But if he does come back, even though he's rated as a 3-star, he's a veteran. He's, played pretty much everywhere inside of our secondary. So I think that he'll be able to pick things up. But with this, we have no idea how healthy he's going to be. Now, at number 3, I do have Marcus Gorey Jr. at this position. He could end up being maybe star player number 2 to start the season off, and he could, start it off at corner. He's probably going to get an opportunity to play at corner. I think that maybe there's a little bit more of a pressing need to find 4 true guys that we like at corner, so that could kind of, change some things as far as how much depth we have at star. But either way, I really like Marcus Gorey. For me, he looks a lot like Boo Carter just with his movements and things like that. Something that P and I focus on a lot whenever we're watching spring practice, summer practice, and all of that is how do our secondary players look in and out of their breaks going through all those drills. I think that you can tell a lot about how a player, like what their ceiling is just based off of those drills. Again, like I said, to kind of start this thing off, it's really all going to be based off of the different coverages and things like that that we're playing as to how I guess productive they can be within their own skill sets. But I love Marcus Gorey's skill set. He's a guy that can play anywhere, I think, at a really high level inside of our secondary. So, again, don't be surprised if he gets cross-trained somewhere. Now, let's take a look at our free safeties. And, our safeties are, it could be free safety, it could be strong. Any of these guys, man, they can play in a multitude of different spots. So don't take this like it's exactly what it's going to be. This is just what I'm thinking it's going to look like to start off spring. So Andre Turntine, 4-star guy. He looked really good last season. I think that some of y'all will be shocked about how his coverages looked and things like that as well. But he's going to be a starter for sure. Whether they want to call that free safety or strong safety, again, it's kind of like the same thing because we'll roll one down, we'll move the other one back just based off of the different looks that we're getting. So not a huge deal right there. I think that he showed a whole lot more physicality last season. It's something that we talked about heading into the spring last year was how physical is he going to be? Because, I was not impressed with what he did in 2023, but he definitely picked it up. It's not perfect. He missed some tackles. You're going to miss some tackles, but he showed more willingness to get in there. And that's something that I can always live with. Give me the effort. Give me that want to. And Andre Turrentine has shown that he definitely has that. So next I have Christian Charles, who is another one. He's been banged up, but he's played pretty much everywhere inside of our secondary. We got him to play at corner, and he's got some pretty good coverage skills. His numbers don't look the best, but it's going to be with more limited reps compared to some of the other safeties and other secondary players that we would look at as true starters. So he's going to get more opportunity this year. He just has got to stay healthy. If he doesn't stay healthy, man, we're getting really, really thin. Our secondary, it's not as deep. And these are just the scholarship players, y'all. We've got some other guys that are, kind of like walk-on players that could probably do some things to help us out with depth. But we're hoping that Christian Charles stays healthy. I think that we need him to stay healthy. And number 3, I have John Slaughter, who was a 3-star coming out of high school, but we love this film. Now, a lot of things that he does look really good. He looks good in coverage. He looks good as far as coming down, making hits and things like that. He wants to thump you. So he could also play strong for sure. He did get an interception playing over the top. I like him playing it free. I think that this is his year. I think that this is going to be his breakthrough season. So don't be surprised that maybe he moves up that depth chart somewhere, especially at safety, because Christian Charles is a player that we could maybe rotate in and play at star or again at corner if we feel like that's something that we need. Last, we're going to have Tim Merritt, who is a true freshman. Any player with a little star or with a little asterisk next to their name, those are the true freshmen inside of this room. So Tim Merritt is a player that we really, really liked. The staff has been on him for a long time. So he's someone that fits exactly what they want. I think that he looks great in coverage. He could actually also play corner. Like, he's got those types of coverage skills, and he does a great job with his tackling angles. Does a good job of getting people down. He can thump you every now and then. He is a ball hawk. So, I'm anxious to see how is he going to look. Is he a guy that can step up for us and give us a little bit more, at safety? Want to see some players that we trust to play true man-to-man coverage, whether that's coming, and I would say not even whether, I would say especially if that means coming down to the line of scrimmage and having to play almost like a star, right? You need the guys that can do that. I think that Tim Merritt, even though he is a true freshman, he could probably do that as a true freshman. So let's talk about our strong safeties. Number 1, Kobe Thomas. I think that he might be the guy that gets to start there. Now, again, it could be somebody else. It could be Christian Charles that gets to start there. It could be a multitude of other players, but he's looked good. He's done some good things in coverage. Definitely a very, very physical player. I think everybody loves how physical he is. So that's why I do have him as the strong safety. He does a good job inside of the box and things like that. But, I would say want for him to get a little bit more consistent with his coverage. You could say the same thing about most of these safeties. At number 2, we have Idris Farouk, who was a 4-star coming out of high school. I got to see him play in person in high school. I like the way that he moves. I was watching him in his drills. I actually have some clips that I probably should have plugged into the stream. But, I really like the way that he moves. He's got good size. And I knew that he would be a guy for us. We'll see how much as he pick things up this season. He's another one, man, just like a Kobe Thomas, that we loved how physical he showed on film. But yeah, the same thing. I'm looking for those true coverage secondary players. I think that's especially what Tennessee needs at safety. And then last, we have Sidney Walton, who was a 3-star coming out of high school. He could play strong. He could play free. A lot of good things there. He's a fast player. I love his hips. Very, very fluid hips. Very minimal wasted movement coming in and out of his breaks. So I think that he's going to look good in coverage. He could actually shock some people, and he could maybe push for some playing time. We'll see. Does Coach Banks, does Coach Nez, do they want to let these younger guys play? I think that at this point you have to, especially at corner. But because we're so shorthanded at corner, now it feels like we're a little bit more shorthanded at star because Boo wants to, do offense and defense and special teams. He's going to need a break. So we're so shorthanded in a lot of different spots that we're going to have to play these underclassmen if they can play. It's going to be up to, our staff to get these guys ready to rock and roll. And down here, you can also see right in the middle at the bottom, the secondary's overall blue chip ratio is at 49.5%. So almost at 50. But again, I kind of take that stuff with a grain of salt. I'm looking at some of these players, and I really like how they look. I think that they are underrated. So let me get to some of these chats here real quick before we transition into the next slides here. So for my dog, JPat86, made it to a live stream. Thank you for joining us saying GBO, FUGA all day, every day, and 15 times on Sunday. Amen. Amen. I love it. For my dog, 10 balls, 1084 saying, for all that is holy, I hope that Dramad comes back healthy for the season. Hell of a player and ball. Yeah, he's one of the best cornerbacks in the entire country. He might be the best cornerback in the entire country. Actually, I think that him and Ricky Gibson, you could put them in the top 5 all day long. I put them up against any starting duo in this country, period, point blank. And also so he's saying the same thing right here. So he's talking about Ricky Gibson and J Pat is saying for sure. For my dog, Timmy G's. What's going on, Tim? Saying hope everyone is having a great day. Go Big Orange for sure, for sure. Hey, thank you for joining us. All right, so let me go ahead and let's move to the next slide right here. So what we're looking at are the players that played last season. We're looking at how they did in coverage, man versus zone. Okay, so what you're going to see up under man and zone is the percentage of passes that were completed on them, and down at the bottom, I do have a key just to kind of show you what those different colors coordinate to. So obviously, man, listen. Jamal McCoy, his man-to-man coverage was absolutely outstanding. Only gave up about 38% of the passes that were thrown to him. Again, this will be the passes that were thrown. It's not just based off of the coverage. Sometimes these guys weren't targeted. This is based off of the times that they were targeted. So everything that he's doing here isn't green. His zone, 50%. That's excellent. Okay, he's excellent. And then we come on down to Ricky Gibson, 52.4%. That's really good, y'all. I mean, that is absolutely outstanding. And, something else too, we'll talk about this here more as we get into the next slide. But these numbers are coming from Pro Football Focus. Some of the numbers are going to be skewed some because with any coverage, even if it's a zone coverage, that can turn into man based off of different situations. And I think that in some of these instances, it was actually a zone coverage. There could have been a deeper zone coverage that had turned into a man. And they said, hey, well, this pass was given up, but it was really a zone and we were doing what we were supposed to do, but we gave up the pass underneath. So I just wanted to point that out there, but he's at about 67% with the zone. So not as good with the zone. Again, a lot of that stuff is just going to be underneath stuff. As long as we're doing what we're supposed to do within that zone, then we're fine. It might have been on the guy that he was technically guarding, but it really could have been maybe a linebacker or something wasn't doing what they were supposed to be doing underneath. And that's why the pass was actually given up. So let's also keep that in mind. Now let's come on down to number 3, Jalen McMurray, 60% with his man coverage, and actually even better in zone than Ricky Gibson was at 53.8%. You can also see next to it, how many passes were given up compared to how many targets each player had, just to give you a good point of reference. But, really, really strong. I think that over the course of the year, he did some nice things. The one thing that I would say about him is he has a tendency to give a little bit more cushion. And that's just because he doesn't want to get beat over the top. That's number one for me. If you're playing corner, if you're playing in the secondary period, you do not ever get beat deep. Okay, just do not give up any of those deeper passes. Come up, make a play. We'll live for that next down. Make a team have to sustain like long drives because then there's a higher probability that mistakes happen with the offense. So I'm not absolutely I don't hate that from him, but I would love it if he could, maybe find some more confidence with his speed, with his hips, with how he's doing things at the line of scrimmage to be able to come up to the line and play like our other, 2 starting cornerbacks so that we're not giving up as much. Now, again, I think that we can scheme around all this stuff, but I just wanted to kind of highlight that. So next we have Caleb Beasley. You'll see that he did not play any man coverage at all last season, or at least he was not targeted in man. So don't have any numbers to show you from there. But just as far as his zone coverage, he was at about 54%. So that's not bad. Again, I think that he's going to be really good in zone. He's more of a zone player, which is why I think that safety might be the best spot for him. And then Boo. He only gave up about 43% of the passes that were thrown on him in man coverage. He gave up about 65% in zone. So he's another one. I'm expecting for all these numbers to get better, okay, from last season to next year for sure. So I think that he is only going to get better. Obviously, him playing as a true freshman, you got to love the way that he played. Next, we have Andre Turntine, who will be our first true safety, only giving up 20% in man-to-man coverage. So he only gave up 1 out of the 5 targets that he had whenever he was playing man. So he is a guy that I think looks really good playing man-to-man coverage. There's something that I was also a little bit concerned about heading into 2024. His zone wasn't the best. Again, 71.4%. Again, just keep in mind that a lot of the zones, especially with those safeties, their job is to stay on top of the routes and don't give up the underneath stuff. We would much rather them, or I'm sorry, and be more okay with giving up the underneath stuff. So I would be more okay with them doing that. Like, don't get beat deep. Come up, make a tackle, because again, mistakes happen whenever you continue to play that way. So I think that he will be fine. Does need to, maybe try to make some more plays next season. So next we have Christian Charles, 75% in man, which is not good. Okay, gave up 3 out of the 4 passes that he was targeted on, and then his zone was really bad at 83%. So that's 5 out of 6, kind of like the same thing that we just said right here. These players, if you don't play as much, you're more focused on not giving up big, huge chunk plays. So I think that's what his mindset was. He did a really good job, I think, of coming down, tackling. He missed a couple, but his angles were, for the most part, very, very solid. So I would expect that his numbers would jump up a lot starting up here in 2025. Next, we have John Slaughter. Didn't have any man coverage targets, and he gave up 100% of the targets that he had in zone, but it was only one of them. So it might look a little bit worse than what it actually is. I think that he actually did a very good job in zone. Keep in mind, y'all, sometimes these players aren't going to be getting targeted in these different coverages because they're doing a good job with the coverage, so the quarterback can't go there. So I think that John Slaughter is one of those guys, like we talked about, and we'll see that here in just a minute. Does a good job, playing over the top, playing kind of like that center fielder, finding the football, making play on the football, and he's definitely a very, very physical guy. So I really like John Slaughter for us as a guy to potentially push to maybe be a starter. Okay, I think that there's a lot of safeties that could potentially start. Next, we have Jacoby Thomas. Really good job playing man. Okay, he only had 1 target, but he did not allow the catch. So you do like to see that. And then next in zone, the exact same as Christian Charles, 5 of 6, 83%. So same thing that we talked about several times. I don't want to keep on beating that dead horse. Now let's come on down to Idris Farouk. 0 targets in man-to-man coverage, but 50% in zone. There's a lot of things that I like about his game, like I had touched on before. I think that he can be a guy that pushes for a starting spot. Now, let's come on over to the final slide that we'll be looking at today. And it's just going to be the entire coverage breakdown of this team as a whole from 2024. So I do have a key down at the bottom to help y'all out. So everything that we see that's kind of squared off right there with the black, that's the percentage that we ran each coverage. Okay, so that is in order. We ran cover 3 the most, and then they're saying cover 1 the second most, like we just talked about before. Cover 3, cover 4, cover 2, cover 6, whatever. Those can all turn into man. So just based off of me watching so much film on our team, I can tell you cover 3 is what we ran the most. Quarters coverage is what we ran the second most, and then it was man-to-man coverage. So as we move on over, the outline in blue is going to be the yards that we gave up per catch. So y'all can just take a look at that, see what the differences are. Keep in mind that cover 3, that's all about staying over the top. The outside short stuff, that's something that we're pretty much giving up. That's typically there. So, the yards per catch is going to be a little bit higher with those types of coverages. Cover 1, that one's pretty high, 13.3. But again, that's based off of the catches, right? That's based off of the times that they actually made the catch. Was not a whole lot whenever we were playing cover 1. So that's kind of like a boom or bust coverage. Not as much boom or bust as playing cover 0, but y'all understand hopefully what my point is right there. And then next in quarters, giving up about 10.5 yards per catch. Cover 2, doing a really good job right there, only giving up 9.1 yards per catch. So on and so forth. Everything that's outlined in red are the touchdowns that we gave up inside of each coverage. And I like to look at how often did we run that coverage compared to the touchdowns given up. You can see that we did a really good job of not giving up touchdowns in cover 3, which you really shouldn't do because, again, that's a deeper coverage. Cover 1, giving up 0 touchdowns. That is outstanding. Okay, I think that this team is actually really good in man-to-man coverage. And actually, if you were to go back and look at that, previous slide, then you'll see that actually pretty much everyone did better playing man-to-man coverage than they did playing zone. So this is a team that's got the players that can play man. All right, now let's come on over to the green. That's the interceptions, and in the purple, that's the pressure grade within each coverage. And cover one, cover zero, you should be getting more pressure because typically you blitz out of those coverages. But there is a pretty strong correlation to how many passes were caught on us based off of the pressure that was given up. So hopefully all of that stuff makes sense and does look good to you. Let me see. Do we have any more? Let me see if we can get to some more of these chats here real quick just to try to stay on top of it. So from JPad86 saying that off topic, but what do you think about Tristan Keys, potential 2026 committed number 2 receiver in that class? Yeah, so I think that he's an outstanding player. It sounds like he really likes Tennessee. I think that we're probably the team to beat. I think that he's coming on home. He's very close with Faison Brandon, but I love his size, 6'2", 6'3", outside guy, looked really good in that Polynesian Bowl, playing up against some upperclassmen, some older guys. And I would actually like if he could maybe find a way to. I know it's too late, but he's a guy that I feel like if he came to Tennessee this year with our current wide receiver class, he would be pushing to get some real playing time. But yeah, he's the real deal. He can make you miss after the catch. He's really tough. He's physical. I think that he's everything that Tennessee wants with the wide receivers. So let me come on down to my dog, Timmy G, saying that I haven't seen a lot of his tape yet. Okay. Yeah, so talking about Tristan Keys, and right here, Jay Pat saying that he's working and listening. Love it. Okay. Hey, look, we absolutely love to hear that. So let me go ahead and pull up. These are just going to be some of the clips of our secondary making plays from last season. And I'll just kind of, give y'all some of my thoughts as y'all are watching this. So first and foremost, we know that we are a little bit short-handed with our secondary, especially at corner and at star. Now, the question for a lot of people has been, is Tennessee going to go target somebody at one of those positions in spring? I think that you probably should. I think that if you can do it and it doesn't mess with that rumor, if it doesn't make people feel like they want to transfer out, then yeah, I definitely think that you should. We lost several players from our secondary last season. You need those bodies, especially veteran bodies. But the one thing that does give me hope is, like we talked about, we've got some freshmen that are coming in that I really trust, especially Tyler Redmond. He's a guy that I really think can get some things done for us, whether that's at star, which it sounds like that's what they wanted for him to play at, to kind of start. I guess maybe after the season, maybe that's when they told him that they wanted him to play star for us, or if it's at corner, or even if it's at safety. I think that he's, a versatile enough player that, we should trust him. But kind of like, what I've heard, y'all probably heard the same thing from some of the insiders, is that we're going to see how things go, throughout spring. How good do these freshmen look? If they look good, if they come in ready to play, which y'all better be coming in ready to play. I know some of y'all are watching this. Y'all better come in ready to daggone rock and roll, okay? Make sure that, whatever you can do to get faster, to get better in and out of the breaks, to get bigger, stronger, all that type of stuff, take it serious. Don't be up there goofing off. This is y'all's chance. Y'all can see the field this season. But, if those guys step up in a way that the staff likes, then we won't have to go to the portal. That's kind of what the insiders have said. Now, I would disagree with that slightly. I think that if you can go find the right piece, still go add somebody. Like, there's no need to not add that depth, because like we talked about with guys like, Christian Charles, with Jordan Thomas, hey, we're hoping that they're going to stay healthy, but they've been kind of injury prone. I mean, you don't want to be in a really bad spot over the course of this year. It's a long, long season. We all know that. So I would say that Tennessee needs to at least target one more player out of the transfer portal in the secondary. But, as we touched on yesterday, as we kind of touched on some today as well, I feel like, man-to-man coverage is where Tennessee wants to be. We actually talked about that heading into this season. I said, I feel like we are moving more towards wanting to play more man-to-man coverage, which we played more man in 2024 than we did in 2023. I think that number goes up a little bit more in 2025, potentially, right? Again, just all depending on how do we look. But I think that because we're so strong with our front seven, with players that are going to have to play, that are young bucks, and I can also tell y'all this, there's a couple of players, like, I can tell you, Jaden, okay, from here in Buford, yeah, he's already gained about 10 pounds since he's been up on campus. He's only been up there for, like a week or two. So they're putting in that work. They're taking it serious. These guys want to play. They're expecting to play. But I think that just adding all these really good athletes should add so much more versatility. So I think that that's what the goal is for this team. Now, my biggest question would be, can we sustain the man-to-man coverage at safety? Okay, again, our coverage at safety, our coverage everywhere was better playing man last season. But is it going to be the same this year? Because some of the guys, obviously outside of Andre Turnstile, the other players didn't play as much. They didn't get to really run man-to-man coverage as much. So do we trust them to do that? That's something that I can't tell you for sure at this point. There are some things that I've seen on film that I loved, with all these guys, but especially at safety playing man. But then there were some times when they just kind of got lost in coverage. And that right there is where the boomer bust comes in at. If you're playing more man, if you're playing more zero, which I think that we'll play more of both, you've got to be able to hold up. Like you cannot get lost, because if you get lost, that's six. That's 6 points, especially playing cover zero. There's no one behind you to stop it. So that's more of where I'm maybe a little bit, I would say, concerned at. And it's a place that we all need to be watching very, very closely. Coming up here in 2000, or coming up here with the spring practices. How do our safeties look playing man-to-man coverage, playing real true, hey, you have no help behind you coverage? Now, we can always scheme around the different players that we have out there. Some of the guys are going to be a lot better playing in zone. Some of the guys are going to be better playing off coverage and things like that. So that could actually dictate how much we can blitz, how much pressure we can manufacture on these quarterbacks. I still think that manufacturing that pressure, getting consistent pressure on any quarterback, their passer rating goes down tremendously. So you want to be able to find that, but you got to have the guys that you trust in these different coverages. And it's more difficult based off of the different zones that you're playing to bring these crazy sorts of blitzes, right? Which, I mean, you can still do it, but you got to have a lot of speed to do it. I think that we've got a good amount of speed in our secondary. With the safeties, I wouldn't say, it might be close to one of our fastest rooms. And actually, I'll go ahead and pull up, right here, some of the front seven clips. But I wouldn't say that it's the fastest route. That's a place that we do need to try to get a little bit more athletic at. So if that means that some of these underclassmen stepping up will do that for us, then hey, I think that they have to play. I think that they absolutely have to play. So let me come back here to this chart right here, just kind of talking about how we looked with the different coverages and things like that from the players that played for us last season that will be back next year. But just because I kind of want to draw the correlation of where I think some of the freshmen might fit in at. So if you're talking about like a Tyler Redmond, I think that you could see him with his zone, probably being maybe in the yellow. I think that, he has a good chance because of his length to push for that green, but I would expect him to be somewhere in that yellow. I think that Dylan Lewis, his man coverage should most definitely be in the yellow. Zone might be yellow to orange, okay, just to kind of give you all a point of reference. I think that with Trey Poteet, just depending on where he plays at, I think that at corner, probably more of a yellow player with man and zone. At star is that's a really tough spot to play. I think he might be a little bit more orange there, but I think that he's going to be good. All right, so let's talk about guys like Sidney Walton. I think that he would be probably, so I'm gonna say zone for me. He's a little bit more of a zone guy. I would say yellow to potentially green. Whenever we're talking about zone, if we're talking about man, I would say yellow to maybe orange just to kind of start things off, but he can most definitely get better. He has to know what the route combinations will be pre-snap. That's something that veterans will definitely know, and that helps you out tremendously playing secondary because you have to mirror whatever the offense is doing. And then, if you're talking about Tim, so I think that Tim Merritt, his man coverage should be pretty close to green. I think that he's more of a man-to-man safety for sure. So I would say that he's going to be very close to green. And for his zone would probably also be pretty close to green. I think that he looks really good in coverage. And he seems like he's a very, very smart kid. So, I think that he'll be able to pick up the different coverages and understand, the different route combinations and things like that will be coming to him once he gets to college. Now, that's not to say that I think that all of our guys coming in are very, very smart. Especially football smart. They all seem like they understand the game. But I wanted to give you all just kind of like a point of reference. I don't think that we've got any players that we should feel like will be consistently in orange or consistently in red with their coverage. Again, the question is going to be, will our staff trust them enough to actually put them out there when it counts the most? And will they be ready for it physically? Because there is a difference. You got to be strong. You got to be strong to be able to get off of these blocks, because a lot of times offensive linemen, tight ends and all that are going to be coming out to block these cornerbacks or, whoever, safeties and stuff. So you got to be able to beat that with some savviness or with some strength, and you got to be able to make tackles. I think that, we don't have the biggest, like these guys that are coming in from our secondary in the 2025 class, they're not the biggest from a weight perspective. They've got perfect frames to be able to fill out. I would say maybe the most filled out of that group would probably be probably Trey Poteet and maybe Dylan Lewis. And both of those, I would say really more so Trey. But everyone else, they're gonna have to gain some weight. They're gonna have to fill out. They're gonna have to get stronger. So that's another really big part of this thing. But I think that we should be fine, actually. You know what I mean? Like I really do. I think that we will be okay. Now let me see. Do we have any more right here? Let's see. Looks like we have another chat right here from JPad86 saying that if we could land an Eric Berry type safety with Gibson and McCoy on the outside, would be a shutdown back end. Look at the difference Caleb Downs made at OSU, night and day. Yeah, that's the thing. That's where I don't see that. I don't see that sort of. I don't see that caliber of safety on this roster. I don't see it right now. It's not to say that we don't have it. I think that there's a lot that you love about all of our players, especially with with these underclassmen. I think that they've got a lot of skills, but they just have not played. Like they either haven't played in college at all, or they haven't played that much. So I mean, it could be a situation where some of these guys just wow us. I don't know that they're going to turn to like an Eric Berry type, but if you could be anywhere near that, I think that if you could be what I would consider at about like an 85 overall playing at safety, which I think that the closest thing that we have to that would probably be turn time. I'd give him like an 81, 82-ish, maybe just like a solid 80. He would probably be the closest one. The rest of them are probably like in the 70s from what I've seen, whether that's really high 70, close to that 80 range, or some of them could be a little bit lower than that. So I think that that's probably it's probably the weakest position, honestly speaking. If you're looking at everything on paper, if you're looking at everything from what we saw last season, probably the weakest position on this entire team. It honestly is. So I just that's the spot that we need to see some people step up at. And if I think that I think the Pat said it perfect. If we step up right there, then man, look, our defense is going to be ridiculous. It's going to be crazy because I'm not concerned about our front seven. I don't have any real concerns there. I'm not too concerned about cornerbacks, even though our best guy's probably going to miss close to like a month. It's going to be up to a month. I don't think it'll be any longer than that. I think we've got some guys that can come in and that can fit well within our scheme, that fit our scheme very well, that understand football well, that are going to get things done. So if we can get that type of play from our safeties, we're going to be absolutely outstanding. So from Austin Roller saying that unfortunately Eric Berry is a once in a blue moon talent. Yeah, Eric Berry is the best safety. I mean, he's definitely the best safety that I've ever seen play at Tennessee. He might be the best ever. I don't know. Some of y'all that have been watching Tennessee football longer than me, y'all could tell me, but he's definitely the best one that I've seen. And yeah, he's outstanding. He is everything. He's the total package. But it's not to say that there aren't guys out there that maybe have a very similar skill set. I think what really separated Eric Berry from other players is his mindset. You know what I'm saying? Like his mindset, like he was a true dog. He was just a Georgia boy. A real football player. Everything just almost a perfect safety. Very very close to it. I'll put him up there with my Sean Taylors. You know what I'm saying? Like all time. And Sean Taylor, I don't know who I would put over one another just as far as my favorite safety, if it's Sean Taylor or if it's Eric Berry. But yeah, it's going to be tough to find a player that's like that. But I understand. I understand what my dog is saying here. So he's saying, he's saying he's 100% the best safety. He's saying that Ed Reed is up there. Downs could be. Yeah, so I think that Caleb Downs could definitely be in that conversation. But I still think that as good as Caleb Downs is, I don't know that he's as good as an Eric Berry. I don't know if he's as good as an Ed Reed, just because those guys were ball hogs. You know what I'm saying? Like I think that what you get with the Caleb Downs is you get the physicality part of it, right? And I don't even know if I could say for sure that Caleb Downs is as physical as Eric Berry or even Ed or Sean Taylor for sure. You know what I'm saying? Which listen, I love Caleb Downs, for sure, but that's like we're talking about some of the all-time greats that that we got to watch. And another one right here from Austin Roller saying that who do you think wins out the safety jobs for this season? Just joined. He's saying he's a bit late. You might have already talked about it. Yeah, so we did. So I will pull this back up for you. Actually, let me pull this back up for you. And this is kind of how I see things playing out, right? So this is pre-spring. So for free safety, I've got Andre Turrentine starting there. Strong safety, I've got potentially Kobe Thomas, but I could also see a world where we have a Christian Charles start there. I could see Jordan Thomas, if he's healthy, starting there. I could see some of these younger guys, man. John Slaughter, I could see a few players starting at the other safety, but for sure, Andre Turrentine is going to be one of them. It's so up in the air just because we haven't seen as much of these guys play, and based off of watching them on film, it's really really close. So who's going to be who's going to put in that work? Who's been putting in that work up into spring practice? Who's going to separate? Who's going to be the most consistent? That's who's going to start there. But hopefully we can also build some really nice depth. And I think that is a very, very good question. So from Timmy G saying that Dale Carter was a beast as well. Yeah. So it would definitely be Dale Carter or it's Eric Berry. So I didn't really get to watch Dale play, but my pops told me, he was like, dude, he was just as good as EB. And for him to say that, I know, you know what I'm saying? Now, I've seen plenty of highlights and stuff. Looks like he probably was just as good. We're talking about two guys that could play corner, they could play safety. I'm talking about at the highest level. Come up, like we talked about, what we want from our safeties. Come up to the line of scrimmage, play bump and run coverage, and you can guard cornerback or you can guard wide receivers, whether they're big, whether they're smaller, kind of like scat back types, or whether it's tight ends, whoever. I think that's two players who could do both of those things. But we had guys like Morley. I thought that Morley was really good. Obviously, Deion Grant was outstanding as a free safety, as kind of like that center fielder. So I would say that if we could find somebody that is anywhere near any of that, then yeah, our defense is going to be top three. You know what I'm saying? For sure, top three. That's the one missing link for me. From Austin Roller saying that it felt like a lot of us were really high on John Slaughter going into last season. A shame we haven't seen him much. Yeah, so I'm curious, how much of that do y'all think is just from our staff being a little bit more hesitant to put some of these guys out there, younger guys out there at safety? That's the one position that we haven't seen it like at all. We haven't seen any young safeties play. We've seen young corners. We've seen young everything else. We've seen young star players, but not safety. I think that could maybe be a little bit of the reason for it. I know the Coach Banks loved John Slaughter too. Like he just loved it. I think that something that I've heard and read and things like that, y'all probably have heard and read the same things, is that kind of felt like the staff was waiting on Slaughter to pick things up from a mental perspective. Just like with the playbook and things like that. Now, playing at safety, it's tough to do it as a youngin because you have to know everything that the defense is doing. And things, they change up so much these days with all the pre-snap movement and all that. Like the coverage could start off, like, let's just say, you might have three wide receivers on one side, running backs on the opposite side, tight ends on that same side. Okay, this is going to be cover two. All right, all of a sudden you have one wide out move over, running back switches sides. Maybe the tight end flexes out. Then you got to switch that to maybe man, maybe cover four, based off of a million different things. So you have to be able to see that stuff really, really quickly and be able to flip and be able to, kind of like help everyone get lined up. So it is difficult to play mentally. And I think that, at this point, I am anticipating that John Slaughter should have everything figured out. So I think he's going to get his first real shot this season to get some playing time or to maybe be that starter. And right here from Timmy G saying they both played well at Kansas City as well. There you go. So like I keep on talking about Kansas City, they've gone out and got Tennessee players since forever. And it just feels like we play better in Kansas City. But yeah, those are facts, Tim. Thank you for bringing that up. For my dog MG Way saying they definitely see the deficiencies with blue chip ratio when it comes to our secondary. Yeah, so that's something that we did talk about. And if y'all are just now joining us, the numbers next to each group, that's the blue chip ratio. So cornerbacks is 57%, stars at 33%, free safeties at 75%, strong safeties at 33%. The secondary as a whole is at 49.5, almost 50%. So yeah, it's definitely not as strong. It's not nearly as strong as how we looked with our actually, I think that I might have that in here. If you're looking at our defensive line, so this is how our front seven look. Y'all can see what the difference is here, right? Like totally different, but I do think that there are some players that are in our secondary that are underrated. And there are some players that I might have in some spots that the staff won't have them playing it because they can all play in different spots. So I think that adds some depth. And, for me, that's very, very valuable. I think that we're going to be fun. We've definitely got the skill set of players that can do whatever we need for them to do. For the most part, I'd say outside of some of our safeties that, don't really trust them to be coming up to the line of scrimmage playing bumper run coverage, but you rarely ever ask your safeties to do that. That's like a cover zero look. But I think that, we should expect that we can play more man. So in man coverage, the coverage is going to be tighter. You can blitz more, you can get more pressure, and I think that overall that should help our defense out from top to bottom. But long story short, y'all, what I think is that we've got a secondary of players that we're going to be leaning on, a whole lot of underclassmen. I think that we need to go out to the portal and add one more body, like a veteran piece for sure, just to be safe. That's something that I'm not going to say I'm going to bank on the staff doing that, but I would be shocked if they don't. Even if the freshmen look really, really good, it just makes the most sense to do that. This room is not nearly as deep as it's been over the past few seasons. Last year, it was deeper. It was probably deeper in 2023 too, just from a bodies perspective, just from hey, we've been out here playing some, sort of an outlook. But I think that we will be fine. Young guys are going to have to step up, and that's the main thing that we're going to be watching. So if we can get our safeties to, play on a little bit of a higher level than they did last season, or I would say even if they play pretty much on par with what they did last year, then I think that our defense will definitely take some major steps forward. Last one right here from Adam Roller saying, or asking, do I think that T-Lander gets his spot taken next season? Really like Edwin Spillman, another Lipscomb stud out of high school. Yeah, so I think that it's possible, honestly speaking. I just think that, we'll see how he looks in spring. We'll see how he looks over the summer. He's not the same caliber of athlete as the other players that are inside of that room at this point. He might actually be one of the least athletic now, whereas last year he was probably one of the more athletic. In 2023, as a true freshman, he was one of the more athletic linebackers inside of that room. So there's some things that he can do. He's going to have to get faster. He's going to have to get better in and out of his breaks. He looked a lot better in coverage towards the end of the year. Wasn't just covering grass. Did a good job of being savvy. And hey, I'm going to turn my head over and I'm going to look and see where are the guys at within this zone, or at least the ones that are closest to this zone. Let me close distance on them. So his savviness could most definitely keep him on the field, especially to start the season off. But yeah, I would not be surprised if some of those underclassmen take some spots. Really would not be. But yeah, the defense, man, it's going to be a whole lot of, I think it's going to be a whole lot of fast pace. We're, blitzing, it's tight coverage. It's going to look how our defense looked to start the season off in 2024 with Keenan Pili. Now that we have more linebackers that I think Coach Tim Banks will trust to open things up. And, I think that the back end will be just fine. But that's it for this video. Thank y'all so much for joining us. Please do make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, share with your friends, family, and other volunteer fans. We will more than likely see y'all tomorrow. Thanks. Peace.